Hey, welcome to North Idaho Experience. In today's episode, Eric and I sit down with John Padula. He is running for Kootenai County Commissioner Seat 1. I need to add that we're not publicly endorsing any candidates. We are only giving them a platform so they can inform the public prior to voting. Get out and vote this year. It's extremely important that you guys pick who matches your values and the vision that you see for Kootenai County. John was a great guest on here. He's an outdoorsman. He has a past with addiction, and he found Jesus 18 years ago, and he's never looked back. Stellar human being. He's currently a pastor, and he is the perfect candidate for running for public office because he doesn't want to do it. And I love people like that. Shouldn't be a career choice. It should be a civic duty, in our opinion. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. And like I said, get out there and vote. All right, thanks.
Now we're rolling. So all that great stuff we just had talking about tree and cats, none of that was
all of the cool hunting stories y'all ain't gonna get.
No. So that's freaking cool. So you've got a dog team, and if anybody's got a problem with a cat, you can just come out and tree it.
As long as it's season and they have the right tags, yes.
What is the season for cats?
They just extended it, so right now we have up to June 30th that we can catch them without somebody seeing it or having it on video. Without the snow, it's a little more difficult, but with cameras and people seeing them, we can come out directly after and catch them.
And you were just saying in Hauser, is it Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife out here?
Fish and Game.
Fish and Game. Okay, they just shot 3 cats in the same location.
Yes.
On a goat.
Yes.
That was down. That's wild.
Yeah.
You see that sometimes where there's multiple. They're not necessarily solo animals, right? They're rolling. Was that a situation where it's like a couple of yearlings or something with
I would assume mom and some subadults, but I never heard for sure, so I can't say.
I feel like it's just a matter of time before my goats get snatched up by one where I'm at. I haven't had it yet. I hope not.
You don't have a ton of
that would
state
crush
land out
my
there.
soul.
There's a lot
Those
of
goats are like dogs to me.
I think that's.
I'd be angry. I'd kill out of anger.
I think it's
in
a
that
little more
situation.
like children.
I'll call John.
Yeah, it's not like your rooster that you freaking drive by it in your driveway.
Yeah, no, Hank. Yeah. Hank Jr. I killed Hank. He was an asshole. Yeah,
he had it coming.
He definitely had it coming.
No, it's very cool. So John Padula today, running for county commissioner.
Kootenai County, right? Just to be clear.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Kootenai County Commissioner. When is the election for Kootenai County?
May 19th.
And who are you running against, or are you running openly?
I'm running for Seat 1, which was Mark Eberlein. He's not running again, so now it's Julie Hensley and me are the only 2 in the race.
Okay. All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Dude, give us a little bit of your Kootenai County history, man.
Do you have some history here?
I have a little bit of history here.
All
Yeah,
right.
Law enforcement history.
That was not a setup, by the way. All right, everybody knows that I'm law enforcement, right? Like I've known John not from then. I mean, I've been a cop here 10 years, and everything that I've gotten has been positive.
Perfect. I came to Christ 18 years ago here in Kootenai County, but before that, my life was a mess. I'm 4th generation North Idaho. My parents were raised in the Silver Valley. When I was 12, they divorced, and I just went off the deep end. I was super angry and bitter and mad, and that just built in my heart as I continued to just make bad decisions, and I was super rebellious. And by 13, I was using drugs and alcohol and pornography. I mean, my life spiraled fast, and that ended up going on for 17 years. I was in and out of incarceration, and I did nothing good with my life. And yeah, it was a mess. Mm-hmm. And
so
then in
age of 30, you turned it around.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I was in and out of incarceration for a long time. I did 6 years in the penitentiary. Got out in the end of 2005. Continued to just live in sin. Had never did anything good in prison. And I heard the gospel for the first time on December 5th of 2008, and God radically changed my life. I mean, instantly set me free. It wasn't a process. It wasn't an up and down. I mean, emotionally, after I got saved, because I was strung out on meth. When I got saved, I had to emotionally stabilize, but I was free. All of my addiction was behind me. The pornography, the drugs, alcohol, my anger. I mean, God redeemed me instantly and gave me
literally that fast.
That fast. I got prayed over by a guy at the Good Samaritan program. I was so full of anger, I was going to punch him when he put his hand on my shoulder to pray over me, because he didn't tell me, like, hey, God's alive. Like, when I pray for you, like, the Holy Spirit's going to come in your life and change you. He just shared the gospel and said, can I pray for you? I was like, sure. I just got there brand new. And I got, in my opinion, manipulated by a girl I was seeing to go into the rehab. She went through first, was like, if you don't go through this rehab, I'm done with you. I was like, I'll go fake my way through this rehab.
Yeah.
Had no idea it was faith-based or that Jesus was going to get a hold of my life, and he did. And he prayed over me, and I went from just bitter and angry to I just started weeping and repenting for my sin. And I didn't even know what repenting was. I'd never heard the gospel, knew nothing about the Bible. And I just started crying out to the Lord. And I was like weeping for what I had done in my life. And by the time I was done crying out to the Lord, man, I was full of joy and peace and grace. And that was it. That's 18 years ago.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. Well, I think it's because I know it's a little bit of a friggin', I cheat because I know a little bit, but I think it's more impressive what you've done with it since. I mean, what was life like after that? So you did some time in.
Yeah. Well, I did time and got out, but was still just living, horribly. So I never made it through the rehab. I only stayed 13 days and left. It's like all my friends are going to hell. Like they need help. And I was passionate about the gospel. So I started going out and dragging all my friends to the church, and my friends were getting free. And it was an incredible experience. God instantly gave me a heart for the lost when I got saved. Like I wanted to help those that were stuck in the same cycle that I was stuck in. And so I was renting this little 750 square foot place over on the golf course, and I had 13 people that I drug off the streets that were either detoxing or just trying to get free of their addiction, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was brand new, just started reading the Word, but I was free, and they knew me in my past, and they could see that I was free. And so, some of my friends were getting saved, and I just started growing in ministry. I worked for a while selling insulation and ended up traveling all over the United States helping Rocky Mountain Insulation make businesses all over the country. To me, it was amazing because I got to go door to door selling insulation and sharing Jesus with people. So to me, it was about ministry first. I'd share Jesus with people, share the gospel, and tell them, oh yeah, by the way, can I check your attic for your insulation? So that's kind of where I got my feet wet in ministry.
Wow, that's
an incredible story, man.
Yeah. Well, and what's nuts is my experience as a patrol cop, and we'd go talk to people, and when I worked with the opiate task force, we'd go talk to people from ODs when they survived it, and I'd go have conversations with them. I said the most challenging thing for you when you get through this chapter is if you're going to live in the same town and have the same friends, it's really hard to look at them and then not immediately get that same feeling because there's dopamine that goes with that, right? So if you see them, or it's like hearing a song that takes you to a memory or smelling something that takes you to a memory, you're going to want to go back into it. So it's even more impressive you were around the same people that you were before, and instead of falling back into addiction, you bucked it. Yeah. Bucked it, and then you tried to pull them out of it.
Yes, sir.
So on the one end, they may have come to you before and said, hey, some of that shit you got, I want some of that, right? Now they see that you're free, right? Hey, I see what you got, and I want some of that.
Yeah, I want Jesus.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Yeah. So, I want the freedom.
Yes, sir.
I want the release. So it's not, I always said, man, it's, when I went and taught at high schools, I said, nobody ever sat in these seats and said, you know what I want to be when I grow up? I want to be a slave to a substance.
That's right.
Nobody ever started that way.
Yep.
They always thought they could overcome it or beat it. So good on you, man.
Have you, since 18 years ago, have you ever had the desire, or are you just...
No, sir.
It's been that solid. That's incredible, man.
Yep. The pornography, the drugs, the alcohol. The one thing that I did struggle with for about a year was cigarettes.
Yeah.
So I'd smoked for 21 years. Mm-hmm. Even in prison, I was smoking the whole time. And I was so bound by that addiction. And so it took me about a year to get done with that. And finally, one day, just cried out to the Lord when this lady, she prayed for me. She knew I was struggling with it. She prayed for me. And I was like, okay, after this pack. And then I went to get in my car and drive away. And I was like, no, I'm going to be done now. And I said, hey, let's pray again. I want to be done. And the Lord delivered me. I didn't go through the coughing up all the stuff. God instantly delivered me from that also when I was really ready to let it go. Mm-hmm. That whole time I was fighting it, saying, yeah, I want free while I'm holding on to it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was my big struggle.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now what do you do now for a living?
I pastor at the Altar Church.
Okay.
I work at the Good Samaritan, and then my wife and I got married 2 years after I came to Christ. My wife and I have 4 amazing kids.
Nice.
That's another miracle. I couldn't have kids before I got saved. With the women in my sin, never got anyone pregnant. And when I was in prison, I was having some issues, so they took me to St. Alphonsus. And they did some tests, and the guy ran this ultrasound. And he said, by the way, I don't know if you already know this, but you don't have a sperm count. You'll never have kids. And I was like, well, no, I didn't know that, but I didn't really care at the time.
Right.
I wasn't saved, could care less. And so when my wife got pregnant, my first thought was, whose is it? I was still new in Christ, rough around the edges. Who is he? Mm-hmm. And she's like, yours, you moron. So now we got 4 beautiful miracles.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do the kids know your whole story?
Oh, yeah.
And, I think that's cool to share that with them. I think it's important.
Yeah. Well, I never stopped having people live with me. So even up until I met my wife, I had a bunch of guys in my house, and we got married. We moved out into an apartment downtown, and I had 2 people detoxing on my floor, like during my honeymoon.
Your wife is a saint.
She is amazing.
Yes.
Because
that would be tough.
Yes. We've had over 800 people live with us in 15 years of marriage.
800.
Yep. We had 12 beds inside the house. Well, you've seen them.
Yep. Yes, I have. Yep.
12 beds inside the house, 4 of them for guys detoxing or waiting to go into Pastor Tim's program. And then we had 8 beds for guys who, when they graduate, if they were serious about ministry, they'd come back and they would pour into the guys that were waiting and share Christ with them and kind of help them walk through their journey. And we were like the family setting that would kind of help all of them grow.
That is ripe with challenges, I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure there's been a lot along the way because I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah.
Well, 800, man, that gives you a heck of a, I hate to think it like scientifically, right? But that gives you a pretty good scope of what. Is there any particular character trait or, rock bottom characteristic that you attribute to success? Or is it
Jesus?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are some guys who weren't at rock bottom. I mean, about 60% of the people that we had come in would come out of the court system. The rest of them would just come in off the streets. Their family had heard about our program or whatever. Some of them weren't at rock bottom at all, and they would have great success, and some of them had nothing, and they couldn't find success for the life of them. So it's just the ones who would surrender their life to Jesus, and walk it out. It's a process of discipleship. We love these guys. Like when they come into our home, they literally are like family. Like we love these guys.
And out of 800, I'm sure some of them have gone back to that lifestyle, but I'm sure a lot of them have not.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
People all over Kootenai County. Pastor Stephen Hemming out at Family Worship, he was one of those people like myself who nobody would have ever thought he would have success. And now he's the senior pastor of a church in Hayden Lake, a very successful church. And we have stories like that all over Kootenai County.
Oh, one of them I ran into in this line of work. I don't know if you know Bobby Wilhelm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Bobby's part of the Planning and Zoning Committee in Post Falls. He's got a wild history, too.
Yes, he does.
But I joke all the time that I think everybody's got this, moment in life where you could go one way or the other. And when I was a cop, I used to tell people all the time. I mean, I was a dope cop. That's focused on that, and then violent fugitives. And by dope, I mean meth and fentanyl and heroin when that was a thing. But I was in the back of a cop car before I was ever in the front of one, and that provided me a little bit of scope and context.
Yeah,
military probably helped steer me a little bit, but I got in a lot of trouble there too. So I do think it's a unique when you're talking to people. You're not, for lack of a better word, you're not just preaching at them. Right? From a position of, a higher position. You can say, man, I empathize with this and I understand.
Yeah. And when you look at Scripture, I mean, real discipleship isn't meeting for coffee once a week with somebody telling them what to do. And praise God for those people who are willing to do that. But when I read the Word, Jesus did life with these guys, right? These disciples. And that was the model that he set for us. Discipleship, real discipleship is we do life with people, through the ups and downs, and we're there. And we've had a lot go back, and we always have to be the bad guy because we work with probation. We work with the judicial system. So if somebody relapses or anything, we have to write a letter. Or if they keep relapsing or keep making decisions that are unhealthy, we have to discharge them. And then, of course, we're the bad guy. So,
yeah, but are you, though? I mean, I even look at that as a coach and as a parent, loving somebody, there's accountability.
Yeah.
There's a piece of that.
Yep.
I'm going to love you through it, but there's still going to be accountability on the other side. And I was always in the shape of accountability. That was my role. I was the stick, if you will, right? But I remember that because I've been to your house, and it was always, nope, you guys are welcome. What do you need? What do you need?
Yeah.
If there's something going on, right? Hey, guys, this is that part of it where you got to take ownership and have some accountability.
Absolutely.
No, I can attest to that it was always full cooperation.
Yeah.
When you were helping people out.
The truth sets us free, and that truth isn't just Jesus, right? That truth is living honestly and being accountable.
I've said that to people with addiction several times. Say, look, man, it takes 21 days to make or break a habit. I've watched heroin withdrawal, and I've watched fentanyl withdrawal. Well, and alcohol withdrawal beats them both.
Yeah, for sure.
But I've seen both those things, and what you're about to undertake is going to be absolutely brutal, but sometimes the safest place for me to put you is in jail.
Yep.
And I'm sorry to say it, but I'm amazed at how many have come back later and said, I'm so glad I ran into you when I did, and I'm glad that you arrested me, but that was my role.
Yeah.
That was my role. So good on you guys that have the real hard role, which is the rebuild. I'm there to introduce them to rock bottom, right?
Yeah, law enforcement saved my life. Like, God used law enforcement as a tool to not just, hold me accountable to my actions, but to save my life.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful.
Are you still housing people?
We were up until about 4 months ago.
It's got to be tough with 4 kids.
It is, and unfortunately, we walked through some stuff that happened, and
Yeah.
Not to get too public about it, but my kids went through some things, and
Sure.
We're working through that now. But yeah, we moved all 12 beds to another home that we've been renting. It was actually the house that I was renting from a lady before I came to Christ, or before I got married, but after I got saved.
Yeah.
So we still have that house, and we put all the guys in that house.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I mean, you are now running for county commissioner, and we're going to get into that, how all that transitioned, because obviously you were serving a pretty specific demographic there for a while, and you had some success, obviously. But with that, you tribute law enforcement with saving your life. As a commissioner, you probably know where a lot of my heart is. What are your feelings on the brothers and sisters in green, Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, and law enforcement as a whole here?
I totally support them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Having been on both sides of it now.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I got to do the tour of the jail, and when they'd called me, I obviously joked. I was like, am I leading or?
Which wing you want to go to, dude? I got you.
It was a great experience to be in there and tour the whole jail. I did get the FOP endorsement, which was just a great honor, especially coming from my background and then coming into this new life. That just shows a level of trust. So yeah, that's great. I support law enforcement. Public safety keeps our community safe, and there's so many people who buck that, unfortunately. So,
how do you mean? We say people buck it.
People in the community, especially people who may struggle with addiction or struggle with certain things, make it us against them.
Right.
Versus, hey, the speed limit is 50 miles an hour, so you don't hurt somebody or yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It's not to control you or to condemn you or anything else. That's there to protect you, and that's what our laws are there for. And law enforcement is there to hold us accountable to abiding in those laws. So I support law enforcement. I think everybody obviously should, but
yeah. Well, and I guess what I meant by that, I wasn't trying to set you up. It was more along the lines of, I absolutely think within the community it's going to be natural for people to push back if they get held accountable. I mean, to me, it's like a teenager sometimes, where you got to be, at some point, you got to hold them accountable, and they'll push back. But there's a lot going through Idaho now where it's like budget. I mean, budget becomes a big sticking point.
Right.
It was like, well, if you throw them a pizza party, then they'll stay. It's like, man, we're down 80% in Part 1 crimes. We were just ranked as the safest state in the country.
Yep.
It does require some investment.
Absolutely.
Retaining talent, attracting talent. And Idaho does a good job of attracting good cops as it is, because you're allowed to be cops here. But yeah, I was just curious to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think we need to make sure that our deputies are taken care of. To train a deputy, over $100,000, to lose them to another department, 2-3 years down the road. I just don't think that's being fiscally responsible with our taxpayer money. If we are paying deputies, and obviously creating a good work environment helps too,
right.
Making sure we maintain that, but making sure that they can make a living wage here and that they're paid to stay. So
awesome.
What are some of the big issues that you see currently going on that you would like to address?
Honestly, I think our commissioners are doing really well.
Yeah.
I think we have 3 conservative commissioners. They're doing well. One of the biggest issues I see coming down the pike right now, I think, is the Hayden city wanting to have their own police department. I believe that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Department is doing a great job for a very discounted price. The taxpayers in Hayden pay a very low tax, and people say, well, they can afford it. They can have well, why? Why do we want to do that when what we're doing is working? Why do we want to go in there, raise their taxes, and have this huge expense on the community? If what we're doing is working, we have low crime, it's a very low cost to maintain. I just don't know why we would change that.
Yeah, and then I don't disagree with you, because it's like establishing a business. Like, if you're going to move a business from another state like Washington, if you're going to move a business over here, there's a significant capital expense. But if you are going to create your own agency, it's not like poof, you've got patrol cops.
Right. There's a lot there. Like dispatch center. I mean, what?
It's a building. It's admin. It's a chief.
Everything.
It's administration. Then it's training. Then it's cars. Then it's guns. Then it's vests. Then it's uniforms.
Policies.
It never stops.
Yes, and just to get it established, and then your cost per unit goes down the larger you are, unless you're going to forego things like training.
Right.
Which I will say this, man, as a hopefully incoming commissioner, it's training, man. Like range and all that stuff pays itself off, in lawsuits later. And I said that to the county commissioners before I ever left Kootenai County. I was there for 5 years before I went to Coeur d'Alene PD. I was like, I want to put a face to this. I worked my ass off to be a deputy that you want to come to your house on the worst day of your life. You're trading that, because Coeur d'Alene was destroying them and paying wages at the time. Said you're trading that for a potential scenario where 2 brand new cops walk in, and then all of a sudden for a year you're going to have a jury or a civil case that's going to make an assumption over 6 months on the immediate decision they made. Maybe it would have been more favorable, maybe not, but you can't replicate that.
That's right.
And county was always great at training. They were always great at training new deputies. They struggled because there's no collective bargaining in the state of Idaho.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see that the juice is worth the squeeze on that one. I've seen other towns where I worked where they were contracted out to the sheriff's department, and maybe it wasn't beneficial, because I'm a big believer that having officers that live at least in or very close to the community is important. But I feel like a lot of these deputies probably already do that, and the towns up here are so close together that I think that's a moot point. So to me, it that just doesn't seem to make sense looking at the cost.
We went out to Harrison and had an event about a week and a half ago, and
where in Harrison?
We were at the senior center.
Okay.
Some people came. It was a meet and greet, and they have Kootenai County Sheriff out there pretty much all day until the evening, and it's been great for them. It's changed their attitude towards the police department, or towards the sheriff's department. Yeah. So they're super stoked to have Kootenai County Sheriff out there more often.
People like that in rural areas, and the cops are out there being cool. Like, it's not like they're out there just jamming everybody up, writing people for 55 and a 54 or whatever.
Well, it's important that they don't just see them at the Harrison Boat Regatta.
Yeah.
All right, because the Harrison Boat Regatta gets a little out of control.
Do they do any resident deputy spots up here where, like, a really remote area? Where I worked at, we had spots like that where they'd have, like, a resident deputy. Like Harrison, for example, would have somebody that lived in the community. Is that a thing up here?
Not that I know of.
They did when I was there. They would have an Athol deputy, which probably should have 2 now because Athol's grown so much. But they did have a Harrison deputy where basically most of like the concerns of the community would go to that single deputy, and they would handle it in kind. Obviously, any emergency calls patrol would go to. But if there was something like, hey, there's constant, speeding at this area, or we've got graffiti over here, or whatever it was, that deputy knew it. Just like we have Hayden deputies. I think they have 3 assigned now that are just Hayden.
Okay.
Which means they get Walmart, which is
but it's Idaho Walmart. It's not like a normal Walmart. It's Idaho Walmart, right?
Oh, still they
still bad.
They set records. That Walmart set records nationwide for the lowest theft, and I know what the number was, and it was still wildly high.
Really?
Yeah, I think some of it's employee too, but but it was still really, really high, and I was like, that set a national record for the least theft. I was like, oh god.
Just like pick anyone in California
or Tacoma,
and a shocking amount of money goes out the door.
Yeah, I just want to compare it to Spokane. I'll always say that, and I grew up in Spokane. I can talk trash. What do you see? Because we touched a little bit on budget and law enforcement, because I definitely do think but it all has to work together. What do you see as the biggest? I don't want to say budgeting issue or a pitfall or potential trap. I mean, what do you see?
I don't see any of that in the budgeting right now. Some of the big issues have tended to be in the last few years: the fairgrounds, transit. The Justice Building was a fiasco for a lot of people.
That was a debacle.
Who weren't paying attention. To me, I was at the county commissioners meetings every week throughout that process. The church had given me time off to really focus on campaigning and figuring out what was happening. And to me, I never would have done all of those projects at once. I think they should have done the biggest project that they could have funded without having to borrow any money out of any other funds, and then done the next projects. So to me, that wasn't being very fiscally responsible. I really struggled watching that process. That was tough. To me, it just shows that there really needs to be people in there making common sense decisions. We can elect politicians all day long who are very well educated and qualified, but if they're not going to be people who make common sense decisions for the taxpayers, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
What's going on at the fairgrounds? You mentioned that.
There was a lot of talk about wanting to move the fairgrounds. I believe that they had a town hall to address some of those things, and it's been kind of an ongoing issue, whether we should keep the fairgrounds where it's at or move it. To me, it's doing fine where it's at. I'm an advocate to keep it where it is. It's a staple in our community.
Where did they want to move it to? Did they have a location?
There was no location.
No location. I don't know. Maybe there's issues I'm not aware of, but it seems like there's plenty of parking and the buildings are like what I would expect a fairground to look like.
Yeah, me too.
Well, and not only that, but the concert they do in the summer, the concert in the dirt,
is the best concert.
It is awesome, and they have way better bands there than the Sandpoint Music Festival does. Like truly, it's a fun venue.
My opinion is if the fairgrounds should be somewhere else, the fair board would be the first ones to know that it's a good decision. They're competent enough to say, hey, we're outgrowing the fairgrounds. There's not enough parking. It's a cluster or whatever the reason is, and to start looking for something else. If they think it's working,
right,
then I think we should listen.
The immediate thing that comes to mind is, okay, somebody has another plan that they want to do with that dirt right there that exists on, and what is that plan?
That would never happen in politics.
Yeah.
So, wait a minute. I just heard something there. Let me read through this. So, philosophically, is that a logic pattern you would apply to other things, that if something came up, you would ask the people that are in it.
Yes.
That's shocking. That's crazy.
What they would think about potential.
What a novel idea.
What a novel concept.
I'm telling you, I sit through some of these meetings in different organizations, and I can't believe how we come to certain conclusions. Like, to me, it's common sense. If there's a board or an advisory board or directors over a certain entity, those should be the ones that we go to first and make sure that we're reflecting the taxpayers when we're making decisions with those entities.
What was the third thing you'd mentioned? You'd mentioned like the new court or
transit.
Yeah, transit. Yeah.
Spokane has continually wanted to connect with North Idaho. They sent another letter.
Bus, rail, or both? Or
bus.
Okay,
yeah,
bus.
Like the City Link, something like that. So
I have mixed feelings about that.
I don't. Yeah. I say absolutely not.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know where you're going with this, but
I don't even know where I stand on
that would
create
an easy pathway for people that might be undesirable. And I know you're in this, you're in a different world than I am, but as far as taking care of those people,
why I agree with that.
I don't think that'd be good.
My first thought as a street cop mindset would be telling somebody, look, we are not as we view criminal activities as criminal here. So if you're going to engage in those, I can go drop you off at a bus and send you somewhere where they decriminalized criminal activities.
That's right.
But they would do the same damn thing.
That's the problem. If it was one way only, sure. But
and there's a lot more.
Yeah, those Spokane boys would start a game of it and send in less desirable.
So what do you think their motivation is between trying to connect with here?
I honestly don't know. I was sitting through a commissioners meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they had mentioned that they got another letter. They wanted to make it public that they'd got another letter from Spokane Transit wanting to connect with Idaho, and it's been happening quite often, I guess. So
interesting. So you're a hard no.
I'm a hard no.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No.
And you got the background to vouch for that.
Yes.
What a unique perspective in politics.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Like I said, I use that as a cop. I told you I was no Boy Scout growing up.
Right.
I used that quite a bit when it came to discretion and perspective. And the older I get, man, the more I value my perspective. And I'm grateful for those.
Same thing.
moments.
It was the same thing. There was a moment in my life where I could have gone either way, right?
Yeah.
And I went the law enforcement route, but it made me a better cop.
Yeah.
I think of, and no knock on Mormons, love Mormons, got some in my family, but the Mormon kid that goes to the police academy and comes out and has never been around alcohol, around drugs, has zero experience of life. I guess it's tough for them to be a cop.
Yeah.
You're learning a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it's easy. I'm like, I know what alcohol, I know what I can tell what you're on right now. I've been there. Yeah.
Not only that, but lying.
I
know what lying looks like.
Yes.
Like I can see that and be like, oh, you remind me. I ran into the 16-year-old me.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I know exactly
what's up.
I know what that looks like. Yeah. What a unique perspective. In reference to like commissioners and KCSO, do you see, because you were in a lot of those meetings, which is awesome. I mean, you're not just throwing your hat in because people encourage you. You had to go learn the game. You got to watch the game to see what the rules are.
Not one person encouraged me to. Everybody said you're stupid. So
why? I have a question. And I had talked about this with a current commissioner on a previous podcast. He had talked about buying a bunch of land in the prairie on a bond and setting that aside so it can never be developed. Have you heard anything about this? I think
not enough to make a good educated decision on.
Is that a thing that seems like a good idea to pursue?
I mean, I'm not opposed to saving.
You're an outdoorsman, so
yeah, saving some of the prairie. I mean, I think that some of the ag land out there should definitely be preserved, but there'd have to be a lot of convincing arguments to do that. So.
I know it was a lot of money to do it, obviously. So, I was wondering.
Was that the $50,000?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That's a great segue. What is your take on growth?
Growth is inevitable. Growing up here, I mean, obviously it's not the same Kootenai County we grew up in, but what can we really do to stop that? I mean, to me, we need to keep an eye on our resources, our infrastructure, water, aquifer. It grieves me sometimes. You know, there's times where it's like, man, I never thought I'd want to move out of Kootenai County. Mm-hmm. And there's times where I look around, it's like, I want to move out of Kootenai County.
Right.
You know.
Is it in traffic? Usually it's only when I'm in traffic. I'm like, oh, don't.
No, traffic doesn't bother me. I'm an outdoorsman, and just the scenery in general. You know, there's always construction. There's always something happening. The highway's always being torn up. The trees are always being cut down more and more and more.
Right.
So to me, I miss 1990s Kootenai County.
Yeah, we had a boat on Coeur d'Alene when I was like Silver Beach back in the late 80s. So you're talking like 87, 88.
Oh, it must have been the time, dude. That must have been it.
Yeah, but I remember the big log booms, you know, taking them down to the mill, you know, watching them take them down the river, and, you know, hardly anybody on the lake at all. The resort was just brand new, like just in infancy there, and the boardwalk was, you know, I think that was early 90s. So yeah, I remember I remember all that too, but man, my take on it is, as states tend to get more and more polarized and jobs can become more and more remote, people are going to be more selective with where they move their families.
Right.
And there are a lot of perks with Idaho. I mean, and there's no one ringing that bell. We talk about this all the time. Best thing you can do is try to help people understand what the culture and dynamic is here and our values and principles, and integrate to that. Just remember where you came from and why.
Yes. Don't bring it here.
Yes.
Yep.
We've had,
preserve our local values and grow responsibly.
Mm-hmm. We've had good success with that. I mean, obviously we're in real estate. That's how we pay the bills. But all the people that reach out to us, most people find us through this. They're coming from somewhere that they've seen it go bad, right? They've lived that lifestyle where these large metropolitan areas are dictating how they live in rural areas, and it's frustrating for people. So the ones that have come up that have talked to us are like hardcore, want to get involved in the community, want to live somewhere that matches their values and is beautiful and clean, and they are willing to put in the work to keep it that way. And I think it's amazing. Yeah. And I think everybody should be like that. And we definitely run into, you know, some folks that grew up here, not yourself, obviously, but who are frustrated with people moving here, and I get it. But then we always tell them that, like, hey, like, it's easy to be apathetic if you've lived here your whole life and things are great and you assume it's always going to be great. But ask any of these people that come from some other state, and they're going to tell you, my state was great 20 years ago too. Yep. And it happened like that.
So, we just talked about perspective. Some of them are far better able to recognize signs and symptoms of the dissolution of what makes this place great. And the ones that are going to listen to this and take it with them to the ballot box are a lot of those, because they have a vested interest. They gave up, you know, a lot of these people gave up everything to move here where housing prices are going up. And I truly get the frustration from people that can't afford it sucks. We have a limited amount of dirt, right?
Yes.
We just do. And, you know, we don't want to lose the outdoor sanctuary of sanity that we have here. Right. But a lot of those folks are going to be the ones to dive in and make sure that they're apprised of what's happening.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Because it seems like a lot of locals are just complacent.
That is what
lack of perspective, man.
That is what we've seen too, and that's it. It's the lack of perspective. And
if they force themselves to go to Seattle once a year, just go down, because Seattle, I mean, I don't know when
20 years ago, it was cool.
Oh, early 2000s.
Less than that.
They don't have to go to Seattle; they can go to Spokane.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, I was a Lewis and Clark kid. Like I grew up on the South Hill, right next to Manitou Park. My mom was a homicide detective there, and
Wow.
like it was open campus. You could go to Senior Froggies at lunch. Do you think it's open campus at Lewis and Clark now, under the freeway there?
Wow.
Oh, dude, it's brutal.
Right.
So I do appreciate those people that can provide some perspective from those cities.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on like high density housing? I know that's coming up a lot, and I personally, I feel like that's going to start inviting crime.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, high density housing, some of the low income housing. I mean, those are things that are needed, to an extent, but it comes with a cost.
It is a serious challenge that I am not smart enough to figure out the answer to because we need affordable housing because a lot of the jobs here don't pay well enough, right? You need workers at the resort. You need all of these jobs filled, but it's so damn expensive here. Those people can't afford to live. Where do they go?
I just want to know why the low income housing is nicer than my house. I want hickory cabinets.
Yeah, Huntwood. I could use some of those.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
What's up?
Throw that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I only just scratched the surface because I was I helped with our negotiations as part of collective bargaining with the association at PD. So we'd go in there and you'd talk budgets, and I think a lot of the frustration for the people that live here is, well, why all of a sudden do you want to tax me more when I've lived here the entire time, and the extra burden to our infrastructure, to our law enforcement and fire are coming from people that are moving here. And that's valid. And when I was a cop and I was negotiating and say, well, why didn't you as city council members at the time or mayor at the time, why didn't you look at impact fees when this was happening?
Yep.
That's a sensitive topic. Did you ever broach any of that? Have you thought about any of that?
I haven't got too far into it. I think if we're going to have impact fees, out-of-state developers, in my opinion, should pay more than locals. But that's just my opinion.
What is your thought? This was all right. I got it. All right, he's got them mastered. No, but truly, I mean, just from a citizen's perspective, I agree because that is who's going to benefit the most from the new growth and construction. Because the people that lived here for a while, I totally understand. And if you're not a burden on our infrastructure, why do you want your prices to go up? And this should be forethought. I guess I just want to implant that. And like as you're getting into that position, that's what made sense to me. Yeah. Who's benefiting from this the most? Let's go ahead and get some of this stuff squared away on the front end so we don't have to burden existing citizens later, which is
totally agree.
Which is going to be met with obstinance, which I get.
Yeah.
Right? We can help with some of that. There's been a lot of talk about taxing or charging more for like out-of-state parking or boat launch or...
I knew you were going.
I think it's great.
Yeah?
Yeah. I go to Hauser Lake, and we can't find a parking spot.
Bro, you just put a cord in the jukebox.
Eric lives over there, and this is a big deal.
Oh, I lose my mind.
Yeah. I mean, and there are places that already do it. If you're not registered in that county, you pay more to park. And I think if we had a $20 or $50 a day, I think we would lose a lot of the people who are taking spots at some of these places.
All right, I can walk out now. He's got mine. I'm good. I'm good.
And a lot of those people are coming from Washington, and they're putting a burden on our law enforcement, right? Because they're not necessarily cut from the same cloth as those that live over here.
When we drive through Hauser Lake, my kids go Washington. They count the plates, and it's about 7 out of 10.
I feel like you've watched my video on the Hauser community group.
I have not.
Oh my! Because I go through and I'm like, weird. And then when they line the street, it was like, do we need to have policy written in blood? Well, somebody's kid is going to ride, and they can't even ride on the side of the road because parked cars just align the whole thing. And I don't blame the sheriff's office. This is not a sheriff's office problem. Their resources are spread pretty thin as it is. Hauser's a very small community, and usually got 5 or 6 deputies on, and you own from Athol to Worley, and one call is going to eat up 75% of your resources. Yep. This is a policy thing. And trust me, there's those of us that are trying to work on that locally in Hauser going, come on, guys. I would rather pay like a seasonal employee at a gate just to charge out-of-state plates. The only reason a lot of those people are going there is because it's free, and then they leave garbage, and they take over the whole pavilion. That sucks for citizens.
It seems completely reasonable to do that, too.
Well, Quinlan does it.
Do they?
Yeah, Quinlan
they have a gate person. Yeah,
they have a gate person in there and charge it. But as a citizen of Hauser or in Idaho, I would pay an annual pass
Yeah.
for that, right? As a state
sure.
citizen. So,
Oh yeah.
all right, he's got my
Yep, I agree.
I feel like he's just acquiescing right there just to get it. But no, but truly, that is one thing that would, I think, contribute to less animosity towards some of the growth here.
For sure.
Newman Lake, Washington charges a fee, right? And all them come over, and I don't want to say all them. All right, I was a Washington resident. But truly, if they're going to come over and recreate, that's okay.
Sure.
Charge a little bit extra.
Yeah,
drop
if you're
your
going to
boat
put
in.
any burden on us, you can pay your share.
Yeah.
Another big one for me is I think we need to figure out how to plow for Nan in the wintertime.
How do you mean?
We used to plow. The county used to, there was a, I don't know if it's a grader, but they would plow all the way to the top.
Oh, the Forest Service roads at the end there?
Yep, they stopped doing it. And that is the highest elevation we have where we can get our groomer in and start working those back trails, get them groomed, and people can start skiing and recreating.
That seems
We had
super cool.
$11.5 million, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, come in just from the snowmobilers and the winter recreating, the people who recreate.
That's
the
a
winter.
great resource right there.
So I think we need to plow that.
I thought you were saying put a Zamboni on the lake, and I was like, I'm down.
Yeah.
That'd be cool too.
Yeah.
Big John would love that. Yeah, play a little hockey out there.
Our resident hockey guy. That's a good call, because there
great
would
idea.
be a lot more recreation. And that's the thing with people moving up here. If you're bored up here, that's a you problem. Like there's stuff to do with it in every season.
All day, every day. It was only between $11,000 and $14,000 to have that plowed. We just need a machine. So I think we need to figure out a way as a community to make that happen again, because it's a huge advantage to have that. 4th of July is low elevation. Bunko parking lot's low elevation, but that for Nan up top, that's high elevation. It gets snow first, and
I feel like there's some dude out there just waiting for the green light that owns his own grader, and he's like, send me.
Pay me, coach.
Yeah.
There's
me.
some
Just pay my
retired
gas.
cop out here, dude.
Hell
that
yeah.
would love
It's good
to do
living.
That. But truly, that's an interesting concept, because law enforcement tends to slow down a little bit more in the winter.
Yeah.
There's less traffic coming through because we are still we're a tourist-based economy, which we're working on changing. We'd love to bring some good industry here, but man, you plus up backcountry, because the more recreation you get back there, backcountry patrol of Kootenai County is hugely important.
Yep.
I mean,
Personal favor here. Can we get the dump back to 2,000 pounds a day instead of 1,000 pounds a day? That just crushed me. Building my house, there were many days when I was over the 1,000 pounds, and I used to love those days.
Yes.
On that business note that Eric just brought up, what would you do to help bring businesses to Kootenai County? Because we need that. Good businesses.
I mean, I haven't thought of that,
Okay.
so I'm up for suggestions.
Okay.
So
Cool. There's probably somebody out there that thinks about it a lot, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you'd hit them up and get
Yep,
that.
I don't think about that type of stuff.
But having manufacturing, I mean, we have a lot of people that are looking to move their manufacturing up here that are in the firearms industry, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
That fits our values up here.
Yeah.
And that brings better paying jobs, which,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? These are things that we need so people can live that quality of life up here.
Yep,
I love Kootenai Health. I just don't want them to be the number one employer here.
Right.
Right. I would like, and the median age in Kootenai County's gone up. Right. We're getting a lot of retired folks. They're selecting to retire, which is great. But we do want there to be jobs and professions and
For sure.
industry for our own homegrown talent, just like we talked about the sheriff's office, to stay here, to retain them here, because that costs us money too.
Mm-hmm.
I want our Lakeland kids, CHS kids, Lake City kids to stay here.
Yep, me too.
know? Maybe not Sandpoint. I don't really care. No, I'm just kidding. It's a rivalry for Lakeland. Come on.
What are some of the issues you think you're going to face trying to get elected?
Obviously, my past, lack of experience. You know, one of the things that we have to realize is nobody has experience being a commissioner until they're a commissioner, unless they have previously been a commissioner like Mark Eberlein was. It's going to be a learning curve for probably the first year. It's going to be a lot to take on, but I believe God will give me the ability.
What is that? What makes you want to do it?
Honestly, I didn't really want to do it, and I kind of fought
That's
with the Lord.
perfect.
Yeah, I kind of fought with the Lord on it. The first time I ran, I didn't even know it was a paying job for the first month I was running. And then when my campaign team was like, "Man, they get paid a lot," I was like, "This is a paying job." It's like I just didn't want to lose that seat to somebody who
Right.
didn't have our values, and I couldn't find anybody else running. I thought it was like city council. But come to find out, they actually make a salary. So
I think the person that doesn't want to do the job is the perfect person for the job.
Yeah.
If you have aspirations to be a politician, I think that's ripe for disaster.
I agree. And I will make this statement to anybody who's listening. I will not be a politician.
Yeah.
I will be a public servant. And I believe as we keep electing politicians, we'll keep reaping what we sow. We need men and women who will serve their community and not waver. So that's what these positions need to be. When they're elected by the people, for the people, they need to be public servants.
And
Beautiful.
Our current role will hold you to that.
Please.
Right? Like, because I'm a firm believer in, accountability in all professions. My past one, they would scrutinize our body cameras and everything we did. Right? I'm a firm believer in accountability. And in order for that to happen, citizens have to have access to information.
Yes.
Like that's, I started a Judicial watch, in Idaho court, which is released soon, but where it's sending out surveys to anybody in court so that you can see scores in 5 categories of local judges. Wow. I just want people to be informed.
Yeah.
I don't care how you vote. I got to ask you this question.
Okay.
I know it's a hard one to answer, too,
okay.
But how hard is it running for commissioner with, there's political parties here and there's some pretty concentrated, powerful ones. Like how do you navigate that and retain what's emboldened you to run for in the first place? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. So last time I ran, I was okay with the process. I went through any entity's process who does endorsements. And I trusted God through it. I said, no matter how it works out, I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to sling mud, not going to get offended if somebody doesn't, think that I'm the best fit. I even had people come to me and say, why should I vote for you? And I said, I don't want you to vote for me. I want you to interview all the candidates and do what's best for this community. And that was my stance last time. This time I've seen just a little, some more issues that I was unaware of within our own conservative party. Everybody's upset that the liberals are going to do this and the Democrats are going to do that. But our own conservative party within itself is destroying itself. And that's what's going to hurt Kootenai County. So it's been tough to navigate this time because there's a lot of people I respect in those, in the Central Committee, the North Idaho Republicans. There's a lot of entities out there that are, at each other's throat often. I'm a people person, so I don't get tied to an entity. I love God. I love people. I'm a conservative, a Republican, and I'm not going to get tied to what anybody else does or thinks.
Yeah. So safe to say that, on an individual topic, you're going to apply your logic pattern regardless if it's driven along party lines.
Absolutely.
I think that's the perfect way to do it. We were just talking about that yesterday, talking about sheriffs, for example. They shouldn't have an RD next to their name, in our opinion, because they serve everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
It's nonpartisan.
It's nonpartisan.
Same with judges.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's frustrating to us, right? And yes, we're all conservative here. But people need to get back to the table a little more.
That's right.
This wedge has been driven in between these political parties, and it's, everyone is just filled with hate towards the other side, which is ridiculous because there's good people on both sides. So I think that's a really good way to go about it, personally.
I get blasted a little bit because,
Sure.
one entity will, see me building relationships with another and vice versa. And, you're too aligned with them. It's like, no, I'm aligned with the Word of God. I love God. I love people, and I'm going to do my best to reach out to people no matter what they do or what they believe, right? If we ostracize everybody who doesn't believe exactly what we believe, would be very lonely. So
Right.
I believe we need to build relationships, especially with people who don't hold our same ideology.
And you can't get anything done, right? There's
Right.
good ideas on both sides. There's bad ideas on both sides, too. Yeah. So I think, navigating that and finding the good of the many is the important thing, right?
Yeah. So as a county commissioner, I will serve the whole community, not the Republican Party, not the conservatives, not a religious group. I would be a county commissioner over the whole county, regardless of what people, do or believe. It's budget and administrative.
And regardless of what the rest of the country's telling us, I don't think we're as far as apart as they drive us to believe.
Right.
When you sit down and you have some good civil discourse, mutual respect and civil discourse, we're not as far away as you think. A lot of times we want the same thing.
Yep.
I don't want dudes in girls' bathrooms, but generally, but you do want people to feel safe and free in their own skin. And I don't think we're that far apart. And sometimes it just takes having that conversation. I just think it's harder to do when you drive a hard line.
Yep, I agree.
So
have you had thoughts on how to communicate with the constituents, and get that information across, like open door policy or?
I've always given my cell phone number out. I answer every call and every text that I can. I will continue to do that as long as the schedule allows me to. I believe in, coffee with your commissioner, town halls, whatever I have to do to make sure that I'm still engaging with the public. And yes, I will have my phone available for people to call.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you in support of a judicial watch where citizens have more information to make an informed vote?
As long as it's factual, absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That's our goal is factually based, not slinging mud on anybody, nonpartisan, non-emotional. We're going to try our best on that. But
so can I say something on that?
Yeah.
So I see, whether it's North Idaho News, different news sources, they'll put out what happened to an individual in the sentence, and you have people who get super upset about these sentences that some of these judges are handing down. When I read those, I see why people are upset. But I sit in court sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day for some of these. I think I have 4 court cases tomorrow that I have to sit through. I don't think we have any bad judges. Like, we have our judges, when you sit there and listen to their reason why they get to some of the sentences that they do, although I think a lot of them are leaning way lenient, I have to try to look at the heart behind it. Because someone will give them a great lecture, and I believe in you. You can do better. This is whether it's addiction or, I guess I'm a little partial, or biased, I guess, against certain types of crimes. I've always struggled with the sexual stuff with kids. To me that should just be. That's a no-brainer. Lock them up.
Yep.
They shouldn't be released back.
They will
They shouldn't be able to
They always
reoffend, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even Scripture talks about, if you offend one of these little ones, it's better that you tied a millstone around your neck and jumped into the ocean and drowned. Mm-hmm. That's from God's word. God's heart is for our kids. So I think we need to be a lot harder on sexual offenses against children. And DUIs, I struggle with DUIs. I mean, that puts a lot of people at risk.
Now you're talking my language, brother. Trooper and me's getting fired up.
Yeah, those are the 2 things that I struggle with the leniency on. But I try to look at the heart of the judge and give everybody the benefit of the doubt. So I would encourage people that are struggling with these decisions, especially if it's one judge you see doing it over and over, go sit through some of their court cases and see how they're coming to their conclusion. I just think that's wise.
That's our goal, is to get some of that other information out, because the categories aren't, there will be discussion of sentencing, but more patterns-based. Right. And it's going to be, surveys for bailiffs and prosecutors and public defenders and jurors and cops and, people that are in courts all the time, because what you're trying to capture is trends.
Right.
And sentencing is a part of it, but sentencing is really hard to validate just based on the sentence. I was in court a lot too. That's where I don't want to disagree with you and say there are no bad judges. I don't want to call them bad either, but it's all the stuff that leads up to it that precipitates it. It's interpretation of case law. And
It just comes down to accountability again, right?
Yes.
Like just our goal is to have a judge look out in the courtroom and see someone wearing a court watch shirt that is very bright and obvious, and just know that the community is paying attention.
That's good.
And I think that little reminder will be enough to a lot of them to be like, okay, I need to be impartial. I need to be fair. I need to be consistent. Do all of these things.
Yes.
Yep.
That's the goal.
Well, it's for the same.
And I would be all for that, for sure.
It's the same reason we have you on, man. We want citizens to be informed when they go vote.
Yeah.
If they're new here and they're coming from another state and they want to stay informed, who's John Padula? First thing you said is, here's who I am. Like, I'm not hiding behind anything.
Yeah.
Right? Here's my history, and it's helped make me who I am today. So I think you understand that I have a servant's heart now.
Yeah.
I don't want the fame. Right? Like, none of that, but there's a calling to it, which is awesome.
Amen.
Yeah. Any other key points you want to drop?
No, I'm excited.
Cool.
I trust the Lord for the outcome. I'm going to run like I'm going to win. And to me, I answered the call, and he told me to run. I'm going to run. So either way, it's a win.
The beauty of these long format discussions is that if you had 5 minutes of talking points, we're well beyond that now. And now we see the real John Padula. Not that you didn't do that, but I'm saying that's the beauty of it.
Right.
Is people can get to know you. So those that are listening are like, okay, like I jive with that, or I don't.
Perfect.
Either way, and that's perfect.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah, the only one that I want to bring up, and because obviously I hit up a couple people and said, hey, we're going to interview Padula, and anything that comes up, and sitting in any of those commissioners' meetings that you were privy to, which good on you for going, because sometimes it may want to bash my head against a wall. Did you see anything between like sheriff's office and commissioners where there's anything particularly adversarial, where it seems like anybody's got a bone to pick with them or anything like that?
Yeah, there's some tension. 2 years ago, it was way worse than it is now. I haven't seen it with the sheriff's office recently, but I haven't been able to sit through very many of the meetings this time. The church gave me time off last time, and I was in all of those meetings. And one of the first meetings, I actually made a public comment and stood up and said, "You guys are our elected officials. You know, the way you guys talk to each other, you know, it's basically embarrassing. You know, you guys should represent the community and be respectful." And I might not have said it that nice, but I was frustrated, you know, watching our elected officials just get in there and bash each other and fight over stupidity. Yeah, that's frustrating to me.
Yeah, the only other one, and I'm all about giving people a platform to discuss it. And we talked about it with Seth yesterday, where what was the word he used for that? Where people in online, where rumors fly, where they just buy into it and then treat it like the truth. There was like, Good Sam, you've been a part of for a really long time, and by and large, it's been overwhelmingly positive, but there were rumors surrounding it. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to it and talk about it a little bit, just for anybody in the community that wants to hear about it.
What are the specific?
Oh, no, they were just, and honestly, I don't even know what they are, but there was somebody talking about like Good Sam and whether or not it was just the way the program, and it's probably years ago, there was always some rumors flying around, like negatively online.
So when I came to Christ, I had to go to Pastor Tim and ask for his forgiveness because out there in the drug world, you know, you hear about this pastor who's got these girls in this rehab and being, you know, a pervert out there in my sin. First thing I thought was, oh, this guy's sleeping with all these girls.
Yeah.
You know, so I was one of the ones spread a lot of those rumors before I came in. You know, obviously we've had horrible stuff said about all of us. Now I'm part of the victim of that often. You know, I hear some of the same stuff about me. But yeah, that's absolutely, none of that is true. We had a girl who officially accused Pastor Tim of, I think she went to court. She's only in the program for 1 day, bolted. There's no men at the women's house. Not Pastor Tim, not anybody else. She was there for 1 day, took off. Well, when she finally got arrested, she went to court. The judge asked her, well, why'd you leave? Well, Pastor Tim did this and did that. Well, come to find out, Pastor went in and was still fighting to get her. And the judge had him leave the room, you know, just asked him, hey, you know, just respectfully, would you leave the room? Well, she ended up admitting later that she had never even met Pastor Tim and was just saying that because she was trying to get out of trouble because she got arrested. Other people over the years, I had a girl say that that she was selling me opiates while she was in the program. I never did opiates even in my addiction. Right. You know, so we hear stuff all the time. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, man, appreciate you talking about that. That's just one of those, I'm big on, if there's any sort of elephant in the room, let's just hash it out and hear it.
When I first came to the Lord, when I hear that stuff, I'd get so irritated, and Pastor was always like, who cares? Just leave it. You know, you can't chase down every lie and rumor. Let's just affect people for the gospel.
And I got to ask you, because you said it, dude, like this is weird trigger in my head. How much in your experience, because you help people recover, how much have opiates changed the game? I mean, once it's gone from like heroin to synthetic. I mean, from a street cop's perspective, it was one of the biggest game changers I've ever seen.
So I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, we did a study on success in the program, and I think the women were at 73%, the men were at 84% success rate. Some of them would relapse and still, you know, we'd help them get back up, but that was still a success if they were 2 or 3 years still doing well. When fentanyl was introduced, our success rate plummeted.
Wow.
And I mean, we love these people the same, we help them the same, but the ones who even really would get saved and you would see the transformation in their life, there would still be this demonic pull. I mean, they could not get away from this fentanyl. They'd be in jail for 3-4 months, go, you know, 60 to 90 days in the rehab inpatient, have a radical transformation, and they would still just feel this pull of just wanting to get high so bad on fentanyl. Yeah. So it's dark. It's very, very addictive.
It's wild, because that was kind of my I don't want to say my game. It's a lot more serious than that, but that was my focus. That was my passion, truly, when I was, because you watch it, you go to enough calls with a, you know, deceased parent and their kids there with them alone, and, you know, all that stuff that happens. But man, trying to get clean off that, you have to relearn what you're supposed to look like when you're happy, because it wrecks your pleasure receptors. Yeah. So like the normal dopamine you get from something awesome, like watching your kid graduate or have some success, it doesn't feel the same. We were never intended to take that illicitly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Some of the guys, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Some of the guys at our house, they would tell us that when they were in their addiction, they would drive around and they would keep Narcan on them, and they'd put it on their lap. They'd park in a parking lot, and they'd put Narcan on their lap and get high on fentanyl by themselves, just in case they died, hoping maybe somebody will find me and bring me back to life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's like, at what point do you say, hey,
That's dark.
you know?
Yeah.
But it just would have a grip on these guys.
Man,
So-
they all talk about it, and when you actually begin to learn the science behind the way it hits your brain,
Yeah.
they call it chasing the dragon, because that first high you get, dude, it hits your receptors like a Mike Tyson punch,
Yeah.
dude. Like it unloads all of your dopamine, but it starts to burn it out. So then the next time you're just chasing it,
Yep.
and then after a while you need it just to not
Just
hurt.
to wake up and live.
Yeah, I hate that stuff, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
It's all straight from the pit of hell.
yeah. Oh, I don't disagree, but at least back in your day, but drugs still look like drugs.
Yeah.
Heroin smells like cat piss and looks like tar, right? And meth looks like drugs and smells like chemicals. Like
Yeah.
this stuff's like clean pills. It's meant to target. I mean, I dealt with the Skittles and Tarts, that multicolored crap
Wow.
that was targeting teens,
Kids, yeah.
So it had to be wild from your perspective, because you see those drug trends, well, similar to what I did,
Yeah.
but even from a recovery perspective.
So we keep track of people who've been through the program who've passed away. And yesterday I sent it to our church secretary because we're getting ready to have our next fundraiser. And there was 99 people on the list that have passed away out of like almost 5,000 people that we've
Whoa.
graduated. And I think 3/4 of those were either overdose or suicide.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
a
been
lot,
in
man.
25 years, but
And it's still new enough to where I don't even think we have a full perspective of what it does to your
oh,
body
absolutely.
and your brain.
Yeah. The majority of those overdoses are in the last few years compared to a decade before.
Right.
Just the difference of literally killing people.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Kootenai County, when you break down, overdoses per capita, because that was I used to go meet up with Panhandle Health. It was twice a month or once a month when I was with the opiate task force, and you break down what the average per capita death rate is for overdoses. Kootenai County was 3 times better than the national average. I mean, and it was, national average was 1 in 3,600. Spokane was 1 in 2,500. It was the leading cause of death in adults from age 18 to 45. Kootenai County was 1 in 9,600.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's where I talk about like proactive policing and interdicting drugs, because now especially the consequences are so high.
Yep.
And it's not, like I said, it's not victimless, man. I've seen that too many times.
Yes, absolutely. We've had guys who got addicted to actually dying and being brought back.
Oh
so
my gosh.
they would get Narcan brought back to life, and that was their high.
Well, I'm sure you've seen it, but I've watched, drug users, needle users. They would inject, it'd be water, right? But the whole process of
Yeah.
doing it the same way
Yep.
would release some dopamine, like pre-dopamine. So they're so addicted to the process, they're not even using drugs.
Right.
Because as a cop, I'd look at it and be like, "Oh, I got you." I'd test it and be like, "What the?" I was just,
Yeah.
trying to get right. It
Wow.
was nuts. I truly always had even though my job was to be the stick. I understand that, and accountability, man. I couldn't help but ask questions
Right.
and start that process and just say, "Hey, man, like treat them like a human. How did this get started? What did you first use? When's the first time you put a needle in your arm? Like what? Trying to find out, how do I find you when you were 16 years old?
Right.
That was always my question. Preventative maintenance always easier than corrective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
They got you talking about fentanyl, Eric.
I couldn't help it. Sorry, dude. We talked about opiates. That's like dude. That was a fascinating conversation. It's good to meet you finally. Like I said,
Yeah, you too.
we've talked on the phone. We've had like kind of overlapping stuff throughout my history as a cop, but my experiences with you were always really straightforward and positive. And I'd always heard rumors that you were wild back in the day, but man, in today's era of politicians and fake bull crap, I'm all for something different, somebody that's had a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Really appreciate getting to know you, and absolutely best of luck.
Yeah,
in
thank
the
you guys.
upcoming
And you
race.
have my cell phone if there's
Can we
any
put it in
issues
the
that-
show notes and people
Absolutely.
can reach out if they need to? Okay.
Yeah. And if there's anything that the community sees as an issue, I would be more than happy
Cool.
to sit with them and listen.
Much appreciated. Get out there and vote, please.
You have a
Padula4commissioner.com.
Awesome.
Same
Very
with
cool.
the Facebook, Padula4 Commissioner.
Go check that out. We're not telling you who to vote for. We just want you to be an informed voter.
Amen.
Just gather that and be an engaged member of your community. I want to see a high percentage of people in our community going out to vote.
100%.
Yeah. Julie Hensley is the other one. Check her out also. We're both running for seat 1.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know many other folks that would reference the other person and say, hey, go check her
I
out.
appreciate
too.
that.
But see which one fits, man.
Yeah.
Full transparency.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you, John.
Thanks,
John.
thank you,
Good
guys.
luck, brother.